Hello and welcome to Millie White Cooks. Today's recipe is for my gluten-free short crust sweet pastry, which is from my gluten-free and wheat-free Christmas holiday, festive feasts and treats cookbook. As well as being gluten-free, I'm going to show you that you can make this pastry recipe dairy-free too. This easy and versatile pastry can be used for a variety of sweet desserts such as fruit pies or tarts. In fact, I'm using this tart case in my utterly gorgeous dairy-free vanilla creme patisserie strawberry and almond tart. We'll start by taking a quick look at the ingredients lists. You'll need 145 grams or 1 cup of gluten-free plain all-purpose flour blend. I'm using Dove's Farm, which is a UK brand, but any gluten-free all-purpose flour blend is fine. I'm also going to add 25 grams or 4 tablespoons of corn flour, called cornstarch in the USA, plus 28 grams or 4 tablespoons of ground almonds, along with 3/4 teaspoon of gluten-free baking powder and 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum. As I'm using the finished tart shell in a completely dairy-free recipe, I'm using 80 grams or 5½ tablespoons of very well chilled dairy-free sunflower spread. In the UK, I use a dairy-free sunflower spread by Pure, but I believe that Earth Balance make a similar product in America. To make the pastry extra crisp and flaky, I'm also adding 20 grams or 1½ tablespoons of solid white vegetable fat or shortening. In the UK, the most well-known brand is Trex, but I believe that Crisco is a similar product in the US. I should add that both of the brands that I use do not contain hydrogenated or trans fats, so please check for this too with the fats that you choose. I've got 4 teaspoons of my own homemade vanilla sugar, but you can use natural caster or superfine sugar instead. A lovely free-range egg, size large in the UK or extra large in the US. 1 tablespoon of milk, I'm using dairy-free almond milk. And finally, an organic orange, which I've also washed well as I'm going to be using the zest. Now let's get cooking. One of the tricks to great pastry is to make sure all of the ingredients are really well chilled, and all of mine are. I've even put the egg, ground almond and flowers into the fridge to chill for at least an hour beforehand. Now I'm using a food processor, but you could also use a stand mixer fitted with a paddle beater, or just use your hands to rub in the fat. Add the flour, corn flour, ground almonds, the grated zest of half of the orange and the sugar to the bowl and give it a whiz. Have you spotted I've forgotten to add the baking powder and xanthan gum, but luckily I realised before it was too late. So add these and give all the dry ingredients a quick pulse to combine evenly. I've cut the spread and vegetable fat into small pieces. Add them to the flour mix. You can see that the fat wants to clump together, but try to keep it in smaller sized portions. Then process until the mixture resembles coarse breadcrumbs, but you should still be able to see small flakes of fat, just like this. Then add 1½ tablespoons of orange juice squeezed from the orange half after zesting it. I've whisked together the egg and the almond milk in a ramekin, and I'm going to start by adding about half of this to my pastry mix. It's better to add too little at this stage rather than too much, as I can add more if the pastry doesn't come together, but I think this will probably be about right. And it is. You can see how the mixture has come together into a smooth dough. Perfect. I'm very happy with this consistency. Pop the remaining egg and milk mixture in the fridge until later. Tip the dough out onto some kitchen film and very lightly knead together to combine any looser bits of pastry. That's lovely. I'm now going to wrap it up and pop it into the fridge as well to chill for 20 minutes. This pastry dough also freezes beautifully, and if you want to do that, wrap in cling film, then pop it into a sealable freezer bag. After my dough has rested and chilled for 20 minutes, I'm going to roll it out to line a tart dish. So I need a rolling pin, some more gluten-free flour blend, a tart tin with a loose bottom that I've lightly greased. This one is 21.5 centimetres or 8½ inches. a square of baking parchment, and I always like to use a silicone rolling mat, but this is purely optional. I'm going to use a palette knife a little later and some baking beads too. I've also put my oven on to preheat at 170 degrees Celsius fan or 375 degrees Fahrenheit or gas mark 5. Flour the mat well with gluten-free flour along with the rolling pin. Unwrap your chilled dough, but as you can see it still has a little give to it when pressed. Lightly flour the pastry disc on both sides, then roll it out, turning the pastry frequently. Use a palette knife to make sure that the pastry is not sticking underneath and dust with more flour as needed. Right, I'm just going to check that I've rolled it out enough to fit my dish comfortably, and as I've used a pastry mat, I can turn this for one last rolling of the pastry. I use a palette knife to loosen the pastry again. I'm going to transfer the pastry to the case. Rolled out gluten-free pastry can be a little tricky with a tendency to tear, but you'll see I'm not going to panic and it will all work out fine in the end. So I'm using my rolling pin to support the pastry as I transfer it into the tart dish, and I gently ease it in, taking care not to stretch the pastry. I'm not at all worried if it tears as I do this. So first of all, I just ease it down around the sides, making sure there are no air bubbles underneath the dough. Next, trim away the excess. If you're using a metal tart tin, it will just break away naturally, but use a small sharp knife if it doesn't. As you can see, some of my sides are broken away too short. Don't worry, just take some of the excess pastry and press it in place to patch it up. It really doesn't matter if your case looks like a patchwork quilt at this point. Just lightly press patches of pastry into any gaps. And look, here it is with all the gaps patched and the top trimmed. Now use a fork to lightly prick the base. Please excuse my camera lens cap, which has decided to say hello to you and wave around in shot. Once the base is pricked, take the square of parchment and scrunch it up tightly, then open it back up again and tuck it into the pastry shell, making sure it comes to the edge of the tart case. Add either baking beads or dry kidney beans and spread them out in an even layer. We're going to part bake the crust using these to help ensure an even bottom to our tart shell. Transfer the tart tin onto a baking sheet and cook in the preheated oven for 15 minutes initially. Then remove from the oven and carefully take out the parchment paper and baking beads or beans. Make sure you don't burn yourself and leave the beans to one side to cool before handling them. Use a pastry brush to quickly and lightly brush the tart case with the reserved egg and milk mixture. This serves two purposes. It makes the tart shell bake to a lovely golden colour, and it also helps create a sort of waterproof glaze, so the pastry will remain crisp even after adding a wet filling. Now return to the oven to finish cooking. If you're going to bake the shell again after you've filled it, return it to the oven for just 5 minutes to seal the glaze. However, I'm going to fill my case with a delicious vanilla flavoured creme patisserie, which won't need cooking in the case, so I'm going to bake the shell for a further 15 minutes, making a total bake time of 30 minutes. And here it is, completely gorgeous, golden and perfectly crisp with no soggy bottom in sight. I'm going to set this aside to cool and then use it as a base to my scrumptious gluten-free and dairy-free strawberry and almond tart. More on that later. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you have. This pastry is from my gluten-free and wheat-free Christmas holiday, festive feasts and treats cookbook, available as a paperback or Kindle book from Amazon or as an ebook from iBooks, Nook or Kobo. You'll find all the links in the description box below, and I also have a quick video preview that you can watch too. If you'd like to see how I use this case to make a gorgeous dairy-free, vanilla, creme patisserie, strawberry and almond tart, why not watch that video next? Thank you for your company. Please do leave a comment, and bye for now.